Here we are for round number 2 with our sweet white-based Mardu deck, and we will take the play as we're a fairly aggressive deck. Unfortunately, we cannot keep this one land hand, so we will go down to 6 cards. Another one land hand. This one's actually better, given we have multiple 2-drops. This is the kind of hand that I think that is totally reasonable to keep. I think on the draw it's a snap keep, but on the play it's a little bit closer. I am going to keep it. I think there's an opportunity or a chance that we don't do anything this game, but there's also a reasonably good chance that we will hit our second land on time. We have 16 outs twice. That's half our deck twice. We'll hit that approximately 2/3 to 3/4 of the time, so we will keep. And even if we miss once, our chance goes up to, into the high 80s on the third opportunity, and so we are very likely to be able to play Magic this game. So let's keep this hand. Opponent also on 6, and see if they choose to keep their 6 or whether they'll go down to 5. They kept their 6. We're going to look at our Scry. Our Scry is Chief of the Edge, which is an excellent card and a card we really want to be playing, but unfortunately we are going to put it to the bottom as we are looking for land number 2. Opponent deciding on their Scry currently. They also choose to put it on the bottom, and let's see if we can find our second land. I think if this hand had less 2-drops, I'd be much less likely to keep it, but given that one land lets us play most of our hand, I think it's worth keeping a bit of a sketchy one. We are able to find our second land, and so we will play Seeker of the Way here on turn 2. Doesn't give us our second color like we would like, but we'll take what we can get. We should be able to get in for a little bit of damage here. Excellent. Chief of the Scale is a good draw. We will play our the Swamp's a good draw. We will play Chief of the Scale here over the Jeskai Student. We're very likely to be able to we're very likely to be able to attack next turn with our Chief, and that gives us 2 good attackers that'll be able to get around a morph if that's what our opponent has on turn 3, which is very likely. Yeah, and they do play a morph. And we'll get to go to attacks this turn. 4th land is totally fine, totally reasonable. We would love a red land at some point. Opponent will take 4 damage, and we'll play out our Jeskai Student here. We're in really good shape. If they have a way to kill one of our creatures, we'll be able to get it back with our raid triggers next turn with our Timely Horde Mate. Opponent up to 16 life with just a morph on the battlefield. And they play an Alpine Grizzly. Land number 5 still doesn't give us a way to cast Burn Away. Thinking about whether I should be casting or attacking with Jeskai Student, I think I'm not going to. I don't think it's incredibly likely that they would block with the Alpine Grizzly, but it's certainly possible. Much more likely they block our Chief of the Scale with Alpine Grizzly, and maybe they block here. I may be talking myself into it. It's free. It's a free attack. If they do decide to block the Jeskai Student, I just get it back anyways. So there's actually no downside to me doing this. So yeah, I am going to attack with all 3. The reason again for that is that even if they do just eat this, I get it back with the Timely Horde Mate this turn. And they have to play around a trick potentially. That's an interesting block, given that any spell, given that they wouldn't block this one, that they would block here, because any spell potentially could blow them out, or not any spell. They still would trade with a non-pump spell. But yeah, we're happy to make this trade. And we'll Timely Horde Mate. And our Seeker's back on the battlefield. We'll play our 5th land. And this game continues to develop nicely for us. Of note, they're playing their 5th land tapped. It's notable, particularly because it means that none of their morphs are going to be able to not trade with us at this point, or be able to beat us in this case. And the reason for that is that there's kind of a rule in Khans that until 5 mana, no morph can beat another morph in combat. They can protect themselves in combat. There's Sidisi's Pet that can flip for 2 mana. There's Monastery Flock that's an 0/5, but they don't beat 2/3s. So we actually have a very safe attack here. I'm not going to, or I am going to attack. I'm not going to attack with the Jeskai Student, as I can block with it, but I can attack with the other 3. They potentially have to double block if they want to. Actually, no, it's free to attack with the Jeskai Student. I'm not going to block. Keep talking myself into attacking the Jeskai Students here. And they choose to make no block, so we'll put them down to 6, and we'll pass the turn. A red source at any point would be excellent for us. Dismal Backwater puts them back up to 7 life. And they don't see any attacks here. Okay, so we draw another Timely Horde Mate, which is timely, given that we are going to attack again. They're going to be able to flip up one of their morphs here and eat one of our creatures, and they'll probably have to block and trade with another and take 4 damage, but we'll get to get our creature back with the Horde Mate. If they block and flip and eat the Chief, and they can trade with either the Horde Mate or the Seeker, but that's okay, given we are going to get one of our creatures back right away. Yeah, and it does look like that's the blocks they're making, which is fine. Yeah, that's a reasonable situation. Another Horde Mate to keep the pressure up. Opponent's at 4 life. We've got, like, they need to add a creature to the board at this point. They just have Glacial Stalker on the battlefield. Their morph that died was Sagu Archer. Crippling Chill locks down one of my creatures. Makes it so that an attack here is not lethal on its own. I need to have something. A red source wins me the game here, or should win me the game here. Helm Smasher does not do that. That gives us a third red card. So looking at combat, what I can do here is attack and put them to 1. I lose my Horde Mate, but don't actually kill them and leave myself, leave them at 1 with me would have 3 lethal creatures, them then needing to add 2 things to the board next turn. Given that Crippling Shell was the best thing they could do last turn, I think it's reasonably likely that that attacking here and putting them to 1 is good. We're still drawing completely live to them just dying to a red source. But I get them being at 1 is really good for us, because they now need to have 2 things this turn to survive. And they don't, so we're going to take that game. Looking at our sideboard, there's probably nothing we're interested in. I think our deck is kind of built the best way it can be right now. We're not super worried about +1/+1 counters, where adding a Bring Low to our deck would be particularly important. We already have one, and looks like we've got our good removal spells, so I think we're happy to keep our deck just how it is. Going to game number 2, looking at this hand that has all our colors, and so we'll be happy to keep it. We get Chief of the Scale on 2, and so we will be happy to try to trade it off to get it back with the Horde Mate on turn 4. And we start off with a Swiftwater Cliffs going up to 21 life. we're going to start off with Scoured Barons, going also up to 21 life. Drawing Abzan Falconer is a nice one. Gives us a play on turn 3, which we were lacking. They play Scoured Barons. We did not see white from them in game number 1. We did not see a white source either, I don't believe. So they are playing all 5 colors, which good for them. We will play this Chief of the Scale here on turn 2 and pass the turn back. Very likely their turn 3 is going to be a morph, which our Chief gets around. Oh, they just play Monastery Flock just for its cost, which is totally fine. I'm not going to play the Mountain here. We don't have any double red anythings, so let's just play the Swamp here. I will attack. It's not impossible they decide not to block, but we also have raid triggers, so I want to open up the possibility that I'm thinking of raiding. Dismal Backwater puts them up to 23 life. And they play a Sultai Banner, ramping them up to a 5th mana. We draw a 2nd Timely Horde Mate. We are not going to do any attacking here. We'll simply tick up our Abzan Falconer, put a counter on it, give it flying, and we'll pass the turn, leaving up Feat of Resistance. Opponent plays Opulent Palace. 5 mana. Plays Avalanche Tusker, which, when it attacks target creature defending player controls, blocks this combat at Fable. Okay, so when it attacks, it's going to force one of our creatures to block. It's notably different than Provoke, which was a mechanic from a previous set. It does not untap, so if we tap our creature, we're not going to be forced to block. Okay, looking at what we potentially want to do this combat, I think the most likely thing we want to do is just make our Falconer bigger, and then pass the turn. We're probably going to have our Chief of the Scale eaten, but we can get it back with a Timely Horde Mate. Will block, given we have to, but again, we can get our creature back at some later time. Opponent tapping out 6 mana. Oh. Maybe did not tap the right colors, so we'll see what they're up to. There we go, needed a green. And they'll play Abzan Guide, which is a 4/4. We have High Sentinels here, which is clearly a very good one. We can protect it with Feat of Resistance, and we already have 2 counters on our Falconer. I think that makes the most sense to play this turn. We are not going to attack with the Falconer. We're not going to outlast it either, because we do want to leave up our Feat of Resistance. So let's play High Sentinels. Both are 4/5s, and we have our feet to protect it. Next turn we can do some attacking and Timely Horde Mate to get our Chief back. Opponent plays a Forest, down to 3 cards in hand. Looks like opponent's tapping some mana. See what they're up to. Going for Savage Punch here. We will Feat of Resistance. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to eat their creature. Noting that we need to... we want to choose green here, because green will stop the targeted ability, will protect us from Avalanche Tusker here as well. So green is the color we're going to be choosing, and that will give us the most potential protection. So we will choose green. Fortunately, we're going to lose our Abzan Falconer. We're going to trade our Abzan Falconer here, which is not the end of the world. Opponent's thinking about it. They may not attack. They do. They see the need. Given that this has protection from green, I am going to double block here, just in case they have a combat trick of some kind. We want to make sure that their creature dies. It does die. We're down to a 4/5 here. I think the plan here is to attack, Timely Hordemate, get back our Chief, and then we can also play a Mardu Hateblade and leave up its Death Touch ability. Opponent chooses not to block. Timely Hordemate gets back Chief. And Hateblade enters the battlefield. Really good turn for us. At this point, we won't be committing more creatures to the board. I think we are pretty interested in just trying to add counters to our High Sentinels to make our creatures big and also force make our High Sentinels big and make our creatures big. Kintree Invocation's good one. They get a 5/5 out of it. Probably won't matter since our Hateblade will get to eat whatever, and we can get it back with Hordemate anytime. We will play our 7th land. We would like to be able to activate the Sentinels. At this point, we'll only attack with the High Sentinels, and we'll be giving our Timely Hordemate a +1/+1 counter. And we'll pass the turn. Opponent with just 1 card in hand, now 2 after their draw step. Our board's looking pretty powerful with a 5/6 High Sentinels, a 4/4 Timely Hordemate, Mardu Hateblade, and a Chief of the Scale. Their board has some power to it, but ours is considerably more powerful at this point. We're happy to trade Hateblade here for their Spirit Warrior. I don't think we're planning to block with their Morph. I'm going to think about it for a moment, just thinking about what they could have. They could just have Loxodon, Woolly Loxodon, which is a 6/7. At that point, we don't get to kill it with these 2 guys. So I think we're just going to take the easy hit with the Hateblade here. We know we can stop 5 damage. And we'll give our creature Death Touch. And they choose not to flip, which is also fine. Sack their Sultai banner, looking for some action. Play Jungle Hollow, go up to 15 life. We find land number 8, which is actually a really nice one. I'm going to attack with both of these creatures here. If they decide to block, I can just add a counter to the Timely Hordemate. If they don't block, I can add a counter to the Chief of the Scale to make my High Sentinels bigger. So both attacks are excellent for us. I could also attack with the Chief of the Scale if I wanted to, but the Monastery Flock would be able to block it. So we'll just attack with these two to start. They have no blocks, so we will put a counter on Chief of the Scale, get in for 10, and pass the turn. Given they didn't block, I'm not going to play out the Hordemate here. I'm certainly now concerned that they may have something like Dune Blast. We played that in the first round, and that's one of the reasons to play one of these kind of wild 5-color decks. So opponent attacks with Abzan Guide, likely looking to gain some life. I'll block the Abzan Guide and add a counter. Sure, Dragon Scale Boon is fine. They do play an Alpine Grizzly here. Abzan Battle Priest is kind of a great draw. We now get lifelink on our creatures. So I'll play that pre-combat. And I am just going to put a counter on the Battle Priest as well. It makes my High Sentinel bigger. We'll get in for 6 in the air. Opponent's down to 5, we're at 25. They have no cards in hand. The only block we'll make this turn is Timely Hordemate on Alpine Grizzly if they make that attack. We're not going to block the Abzan Guide. Opponent back up to 11. We're at 23. Opponent tapping mana with their card that they drew this turn. They have Burn Away. That's unfortunate. That kind of blows us out as much as possible. Now our Timely Hordemates are worse. Our Abzan Battle Priest is worse. We are going to just tick up our Battle Priest here. Wow, Burn Away kind of ended up being like a very, very good draw for them. Our Battle Priest is still good. Yeah, we'll just take the damage here. Still not flipping their morph, not sure what their morph is. We'll make our creatures. Draw a Swamp. Wondering whether we want to keep making our Battle Priest bigger. I think we do. We've got lots of time with the Warrior tokens. So we have the opportunity to make our Battle Priest bigger than their Abzan Guide. We won't play the Hordemate here. There isn't really a need to. Not sure why they haven't flipped up their morph yet, unless it's a creature that isn't better than a 2/2. So it makes me wonder whether I should just be triple blocking. I think I'm going to. I think it's fairly unlikely that they have a creature that's bigger than this. Like, they would have flipped it up by now. They've had turns where they haven't done anything, turns where there's been a chance to attack. Yeah, and it is just a Monastery Flock. Okay. Play the Alpine Grizzly. We find a Plains. And we will play the Horde Mate here. It's going to have a chance to trade with a Grizzly. Still lots of good draws. We have 2 Burnaways that can take care of their Abzan Guide. We have Zergo Helm Smasher. We have Butcher the Horde. There's lots of cards that get us back into a really good position here. We will block this Abzan Guide. Another land, unfortunate for us. That puts us up to 11 lands drawn, or 11 lands in play, and a 12th land in hand. We are going to think about whether we can tick up this Battle Priest one more time. What happens if we do is that they get to attack. They'll get in for 4 plus whatever, which is probably too many, so I think I just have to leave the Battle Priest back on blocking duty until we draw some more spells or until we draw a way to deal with the Abzan Guide. Force Away is a really good one, and that might kill us. So thinking about whether we can survive this by blocking the Alpine Grizzly and trading, that only works if their morph doesn't flip into anything bigger than a 2-power creature. I think that's pretty unlikely, so I'm just going to block the Abzan Guide and hope that we get another turn. There's some creatures that kill us no matter what. That's not one of them, so this gives us another turn, even though we're at 1 life. Seeker of the Way does not do it, so we'll concede this game and we'll go to game number 3. Wow, that was a really interesting game, lots of back and forth. Unfortunate that we were unable to close the game out. That burn away really stopped us in our tracks. It took away the trigger from Timely Horde Mate and it kept us from being able to finish the game, but a really close one. So let's look at game number 3. I'd like to play first. Looking at our hand, we have not a great one, but one that we'll keep. We do have lands and spells, so let's keep this hand and try to find our way to a couple of 2-drops in the first couple turns. They also keep their 7. We'll play Scoured Barrens, go up to 21 life, and pass the turn back their way. And they play Dismal Backwater, also up to 21. We find a Burn Away, but no red yet. Red source at any point will give us some good removal spells to deal with their creatures. Zergo Helm Smasher, we'll play our 3rd land and pass. Likely playing a Morph here, possibly playing an Alpine Grizzly, which we've seen a couple of. Play Temur Ascendancy. That explains the Grizzlies, which tend to not be amazing in this format. Deciding whether we want to just play a Naked Horde Mate here. We probably do, and the reason for that is we don't have any 2-drops to get back anyways, and it lets us play a spell, leaving open mana or leaving us with the ability to play Helm Smasher next turn. We're unlikely to want to Mardu Charm anything here. Or maybe we do. Maybe we just leave this back because Mardu Charm could be used to ambush something like an Alpine Grizzly. That makes sense to me. Or if they just play a Morph, we can eat it as well. Alpine Grizzly works. They do get to draw a card. We get to eat it, which is nice. So it's kind of a medium trade for them. They do take the bait. We'll make 2 warriors. With first strike. And we'll block. Great. They play their 4th land. Land off the top would have let us go for us Helm Smasher here. We don't find it. We'll attack with our 2 warriors. And we will play a Horde Mate this time. Opponent plays a Morph. See if they decide to attack with it. They don't. Land off the top lets us play Helm Smasher, which will be our play. We'll attack with Helm Smasher and with the Timely Horde Mate. We'll leave the warriors back. Actually, I don't mind if they want to eat a warrior for us to get an extra 4 damage, put them down to 9 life. That would be a pretty reasonable turn for us. This also could be a Monastery Flock where they just flip it up to block the Timely Horde Mate, which would be fine. We have Burn Away to get rid of their next play as well. And they'll require a removal spell to kill our Helm Smasher. Do flip up a Monastery Flock, it looks like here, given that they're tapping blue. Oh, deciding. Going to blocks, and they'll decide to block. They will block a warrior. Okay. Nope, not sure. They do go for the Horde Mate, so those warriors do get in for free, it looks like. The opponent's still thinking, so there we go. Yeah, and they did have Monastery Flock, so they were deciding whether they wanted to trade their Horde Mate or whether they wanted to just have the Monastery Flock stay alive. Cast Winter Flame on our Helm Smasher, so Helm Smasher down. Have our 6th land. We'll attack with our 2 warriors and we'll leave up our Horde Mate we'll leave up Take Up Arms. Opponent's down to 10. plays Saltai Banner. That's good for us. They've got 5 spells in hand, so it's this is interesting. Burn Away is not a card that I really want to use on Embodiment of Spring, but we can make it so that it's effectively a 2-for-1, and I'm willing to do that. So now their Kintree Invocation creates a 0/0. So not my like top play ever, but I think that making it so they don't get their 3/3 at all is reasonable. So we'll attack for 2 here, play Abzan Battle Priest, and leave up Feet of Resistance. Opponent's tapping some mana. They do play Alpine Grizzly. Trigger their Temur Ascendancy. Rugged Highlands. They decide not to block. So plan here is to attack with all. Feet of Resistance, whatever he blocks, which will likely be the Battle Priest. Get in for a couple damage, and then play our Morph face down. Protection from green. And we'll cast a face down War Behemoth. So we are presenting lethal this turn. They are going to need to add to the board. They draw a land. Windswept Heath puts a creature on the battlefield, or puts a land on the battlefield. They're down to 6 now. Seven mana for a Woolly Loxodon. They trigger their Ascendancy. We don't quite have lethal here, as is. So I'm not interested in attacking this turn, because all that does is lets them eat our Battle Priest for us to get in for 5, potentially. I'm going to leave up Take Up Arms and outlast the Battle Priest. And that gives us a much wider board to attack with next turn. Opponent finds another land. Still likely has 4 spells in hand as they miss land drops early. Potentially not. They could have lands because they've drawn some extra cards. Find a Morph, which does lead me to believe it's not a Morph that has 4 power, otherwise they would just play it face up at this point. We'll play Take Up Arms. Find a Plains. Now we have to decide what we're doing, if we're going for the win or not. Right now we can't actually kill them, but we can trade our Battle Priest for what will likely be their Morph if we flip this up. I think probably our better play is just to keep ticking up the Battle Priest another turn, probably just play out the Horde Mate just as a 3/2, force them to make another play. And then pass the turn. They do have Burn Away. Okay, so we would have probably been happy if we had gone for it there. Tapping some mana. Five mana for Avalanche Tusker. Get to draw another card. Timorous Tendency's drawn them a bunch of cards this game. Let's see what they decide to do. They decide not to do anything. Hateblade is an okay one. Now deciding what we do if we were to jam, the only thing that potentially survives is our morph, depending on how they decide to block. Likely their blocks would be here to here, possibly here to here, and here to here. We put them to 2. They keep all their creatures, with the exception of possibly 1. And we go, and I don't think an attack is good here, just because we lose so many creatures and we don't take any of theirs away, that I don't think we gain a ton by it. We're still looking for a removal spell, a Chief of the Edge, something to put this back in our favor. A Butcher of the Horde would also be an excellent draw here. They're up to 7. That's the other thing with the gain lands, the lands that gain 1 life. It can mess up our math if the math's really close, that we're looking to put them to 2 and then they go up to 3 and we don't have lethal anymore. So we need to make sure that we are paying attention to that. Goes for a Savage Punch here. We can't do anything about that, so we'll just take it. We could flip it up to have it take 1 extra damage, which might be useful actually if they decide to block with the Horde Mate. So yeah, let's turn that up. Just so now that it's got 3 damage marked on it instead of 2. So now Horde Mate would be able to kill it if they decide to attack. Opponent now tapping some more mana. Let's see what they've got here. Briber's Purse can make it so a creature can't attack or block. Okay. Card was not particularly good in this format, but looks like it'll be okay here. Falconer's an okay draw, so we'll play it. I think it's had a lot of time making it so it can't attack or block, but there's nothing we can do about that. Clock is becoming relevant here. They are just about even with us on time again. Down to 1 card in hand, same as us. We still have some very good draws. We have high Clerics of Asherin still, which would probably win the game almost immediately. They're going to draw a card with their Sultai banner. They're up to 2 cards again. Made it so our Hateblade can't block. That's fine. they're asking us to trade their Avalanche Tusker for something, I definitely will. Put the Horde Mate in front of it as well. Dragon Scale Boon. I thought about that and then obviously didn't make any effort to put an extra creature in front of it, so that's unfortunate for us. Another Hate Blade is a good draw, because that means that they're going to have to allow one of them to block here. And play a land up to 9 life. No attacks. Find a swamp, so now we're able to activate Hate Blade, both Hate Blades. We'll pass the turn. Again, that dream of killing them just barely has kind of gone away now that they're up to 10 life. Another land. We'll play our land and pass the turn. And clock again is becoming an issue. We are up 30 seconds on them. We find a Seeker of the Way, we'll play it. Opponent plays a Morph. Unlikely to be one that has 4 power, given they would have maybe drawn a card. Find a Jeskai Student, we'll play it. And pass again. My commentary may drop off a little bit now that we are kind of into this really kind of super endgame scenario. Draw another land, and we'll just pass. Opponent's found a spell here. Abomination is fine. It's a 3/4. Has haste. Can start attacking, which he does. Or which they do. We'll see if they choose to loot. They do. And discard a land. Find a Scarred Barrens. We'll go up to 23. And just pass the turn again. Opponent's down to 6 cards in library and less than 2 minutes on the clock. We're now a full minute ahead of them on clock. Opponent considering tapping some mana. Play a Morph. Attack with Abomination. We're down to 20. They choose not to loot this time. Either means they have a spell in hand or they're worried about decking. We find Butcher of the Horde. We'll play our Butcher. Not going to sacrifice anything this turn. And the reason for that is they do have Briber's Purse. Opponent flips up Sagu Archer. Opponent has less than a minute left on clock now. And we have a pretty reasonable board state. It's going to make it hard for them to kill us. They are tapping mana, which is always worrisome. They have a Freet Weapon Master. They give that to the Abomination. Interesting choice. Wow, what a card. We might just be dead here. 10, 12, 20. Yeah, it looks like we've lost the game. That's kind of wild. They do have a trigger here. See if they can get through it in time. They were able to kill us with 5 seconds left on the clock. That's pretty insane. Barrage of Boulders, that's a good one. Unfortunately, we never had a real way to do anything about that. Even if we had been able to attack with our Butcher the previous turn, they still would have put us to -6, so we would have still been at -1 and unable to kill them there. But that was match number 2, a really close match, a match that went really long. Barrage of Boulders was pretty good against us there. We'll see you back for round number 3.